this night I was sharing kind of the same message I shared every night in Alabama and South Carolina. And that's the message of why does God give us pain? We all have pain in our lives, each one of us here. And sometimes we ask God, why does God give us pain? I believe God gives us pain to help us realize how much we need Him, first of all. And second of all, so that once we take our pain to Christ and walk through that pain and experience healing, then we can go out and help others who are struggling with the same things. Now, we all have different types of pain, different things that we go through in life. I don't know, whatever it is that you're experiencing, maybe it's, addiction, abuse, I don't know what you're going through. But God has given us that for a reason. The emotional pain that we deal with. And everybody's different. Everybody has a story. Each one of us here has a story. And we're all here for a reason. And that's so that God can glorify Himself through us and through our pain. And like I said, everyone has a story. But mine is very different from pretty much everybody else, and that's the way it is. But I'm adopted. My biological mother was living in a state mental hospital down in the Winfield area, and her parents were notified by prison or a hospital official one day that their youngest daughter, they had two daughters there, and the youngest daughter was expecting a baby. These daughters were severely mentally handicapped. They were functioning at around 3 months of age their whole lives. And so the official told them that if you're going to do an abortion, you need to do it now. Because, it's a very high-risk pregnancy. She only weighed 60 pounds when she got pregnant. And just a very, very difficult situation. It was very difficult for the family as well. But they chose to give me a chance. They chose not to do an abortion, even though that would have been the easiest way out. And after they found out that I was coming along, the news media got a hold of it, and it was big news. It was all over the place. It was on TV, all over, and newspapers, and they never gave out the Bontrager's name, but and my biological father turned himself in. He knew there wasn't much of a chance he'd ever have to get away with it because of DNA testing. So he turned himself in, and he was charged with 1 count of rape, and he served 1 month short of 10 years in prison. I was adopted at birth by my biological mother's brother and his wife. I was born way early. They're not exactly sure how far along I was, but I weighed 3 pounds and 6 ounces when I was born. And somebody mentioned the fact that it's very interesting because now I'm 6'3" tall. So I hadn't really thought of that before. But so, as I said, I was adopted at birth by my aunt and uncle. And I had a really good home. Grew up in a loving Christian family. And, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, began going to school. Went to a private school. And, my friends and their moms would come pick them up from school, and I began to wonder, why do I have to be different? Why do I have to be the one that has to be adopted? And I didn't know a lot about the situation, but I knew just enough to know that it was a very, very difficult situation for the family to talk about. So So I just kept everything inside and I didn't let anybody know what I was feeling, what I was going through. Just a lot of questions, why me? Why does my mom have to be handicapped? Why can't I just be like everyone else, And it just really bothered me. Just all these different things that I was struggling with, and nobody knew that I was dealing with. So when I was 8 years old, I gave my life to Christ, and that was a very good experience. I'm very glad I did it. And but while that was a good experience for me, I still had all this hurt, all this baggage, all this stuff that I was holding on to, and I didn't know where to go with it because I knew it was very hard for the family to talk about. So I just kind of kept everything inside and didn't let anybody know what I was going through. When I was 12 years old, my dad took me aside one morning, and he told me what happened. He explained to me the circumstances around my birth. And as a 12-year-old, when you're struggling with feelings of insecurity and purpose in your life, that just brought so many more questions. Why did my dad do what he did? Where is he now? Why didn't God protect my mother? And just all these different questions. And no answers. At least it seemed to be no answers. So, there again, I had all these questions and nowhere to go with it. So I just kind of went on trying to live my life as normal as I could, But that doesn't work. And once you hold things inside for so long, they start to fester and they get just, you know how it is. And my early teen years were very difficult for me. I just had a lot of anger and frustration at God as, why would you allow me to be born in this situation? I feel like an accident. Why can't I just be a normal person? And that really, really bothered me. But I was just trying to go along and live my life as best I could. When I was 15, I joined the church, I was baptized, and it was a good experience. But still, just had all these things that I hadn't ever worked through, hadn't ever dealt with. From way back, deep hurts in my past. And so, just going along, trying to live life as best I could. When I was 17, most of the youth group that I was with at the time, we went down to Texas for a weekend of youth meetings. And on the way down, we picked up a young girl from Oklahoma. Her name was Stephanie Winger. And we had a very good time down to that weekend. But Sunday afternoon, she was in a motorcycle accident and passed away later that night at the hospital. That was one of the darkest nights of my life. Just asking God, why? Why would you take her? She was 16 years old, beautiful girl, had her whole life ahead of her. And it just seems so unfair. Why? Why, God? And so with all this hurt, all this pain, all this frustration, I got to the point in my life where I was ready to leave. I was ready to hang up Christianity as I knew it. I was done. But I didn't know where to go. And by the grace of God, Mom and Dad figured out that things were not good. They knew I was really struggling with some things. They didn't know what all, but they knew that I really had some deep hurts from my past. And so they sent me to counseling over here at Devin and Joanne's. It was such a powerful time. I had about 4 or 5 months to think about it before I went, and I knew I needed help, but I didn't know where to go. So I went, and it changed my life. I wouldn't be here tonight if I hadn't gone. They were very, very helpful, very patient as they as they helped me identify all those feelings of resentment and fear of being alone and just all those different things that I didn't even know I was going through because I was so busy just running from my pain. They were very helpful as they just dug everything out, and it wasn't a lot of fun. I know a lot of you have been there. I know what it's like. But they, the second to last session that I took was just so tremendous, so healing for me. It was my emotional pain cleansing session. Basically, they took all my emotional pain, all the hurt that I had as a kid, and growing up in my teen years and stuff, all those questions. And I don't remember all of the prayer, but there's a few parts that I do remember very, very well. I asked Jesus, Joanne led me in prayer. I would ask Jesus a question, and he would respond with a thought or an image in my mind. And I asked him, why am I here? Why was I created? He said, you're here for a purpose. And I asked him, what is that purpose? He said, so I can be glorified through a bad situation. And I asked him, and the one thing that I always had for God was, why didn't God protect my mom? And I asked him, when my mom was being violated, were you there? He said, yes. I asked her, what were you doing? He said, I was crying. I asked him, why didn't you stop him? And he said, because I have a plan. And I asked him, what is that plan? He said, I want you to go to prisons and churches and share your story. For the first time in my life, I realized that I'm not just another number out there. God has a reason and a plan for me to be here. And a couple months later, I was having my devotions, and I was just crying out to God and asking him, why? How can I do this? This just seems so overwhelming to me. And he came back with the biggest answer that he could. He said, all of heaven is behind you, cheering you on. And when I think about that, I have to think especially of the millions of babies who have been aborted in the last 40, 50 years. I have millions of supporters. That means so much to me tonight. Went to Bible school in Arkansas in 2012. I was scheduled for 3 weeks, but I went home after 2 weeks because of Dad's health. And he had been battling cancer off and on for about 7 years. And it had returned the August before, so I knew going down that I may have to come home. And so the one night I got the phone call that things were not good and that I should come home. So I left all my friends, and came home. And I was really glad I did. He passed away about a month later then, on February the 13th of 2012. And that was a very, very difficult time for us as a family. But there was something that happened the night that he passed away that was just such a blessing to us as a family. He passed away about 12:30, but at 11:45, my grandma from Pennsylvania, who was staying with us at the time, went in to check on him one more time. before she came to get us, to wake us up. And before he had been laying there and his eyes were just pretty much just slit. But she went in to check on him again, and his eyes were just wide open, and they were just sparkling. And he was looking up somewhere past the ceiling. The next morning, a friend of ours from the community called, and he had heard that he had passed away, and he wondered what time he died. And Mom told him, and he said that at that very moment, when he was looking up, two of his daughters, two of this guy's daughters were on their way home from a youth activity, and they were coming down into town. It said suddenly there was like a spotlight that came down out of heaven and shone right down in our place. Just such a blessing to us as a family, because we know where he's at today, even though we miss him. It was around the time of Dad's death that I decided I was going to start the search for my biological father. I had no idea where to start. I knew that he had been in prison, but I didn't know where he'd gone after he got out. And but I heard that there was I had a coworker that had been in prison with him and knew him fairly well. And so I happened to be working with this guy one day, and his name was Dale, and his widow was down here tonight. It's good to have you here, Katie. And I asked him if he knows this guy. Oh yeah, I know him very well. We're friends on Facebook. I have his phone number and everything. So there was my connection to, man, to get up enough guts to do it was another thing. And it was about a year later that I decided it was time to do this. And so it was a Thursday morning. I went to work. On my way to work, I just prayed. I was like, God, if this is actually supposed to work, have Dale and I meet in private. And which was a very rare thing, because Dale was in a completely different department than I was. I hardly ever saw him. Well, 10 o'clock break came, and we were all walking up the break, and here came Dale walking to the shop. And so I stopped and we started talking a little bit. And after everybody left, I said, hey, whenever it works for you, I'm ready to meet my dad, and whenever it works for you and him. And all right, I'll see what I can do. Well, I figured it would be a couple weeks before he gets back with me. And he came back about 10:45. And he's like, yeah, we'll Saturday at 2, but I just about had a heart attack. But I was like, yeah, I think that'll work. So I went ahead and met him, and it was a very, very good time. When we met the first time, I asked him if he would be willing to meet any of the rest of the family. And he said he would. He'd be willing to do that. So it was a couple months later that we had a family reunion in the area. And all the aunts and uncles, except for my uncle who lives here locally, he had to work for some reason. And we were all able to go to Dale's house, and we met him and his wife there. And it was a very, very tense meeting, very difficult for the family. But it was also just so beautiful to see the power of forgiveness and how God can take something so awful and make something so beautiful out of it. And it was a couple years later that he sent me a text message and said that him and his wife had become Christians. And he wondered if I would be willing to come down to be at the baptism. It was about a month later. And I said, yeah, I'm glad to do that. So I was planning to go down. And it was about a week before the baptism that I got another text from him. And he said that he had been talking to his minister, and his minister had told him that if there's anybody that he would like to have help baptizing, that would be all right. And he wondered if I would be willing to do that. And I said, yeah, I'd be glad to. So I went and drove down to where he lived, and I went in there and I helped baptize him. That was a very, very special time to be there with him. And it was a about 3 weeks after baptism that my biological mother passed away. I remember seeing her maybe 6 or 7 times in my life. But there's something about a biological parent that we all want. We all want that relationship with our parents. And it's something that I was never able to have with her because of her condition. I always wanted to be there when she passed away, but we were in Montana on vacation when we got the word, so I wasn't able to be there when she passed away. The funeral was one of the hardest I've ever been at. Like I said, we all want that relationship. We all want that connection with our parents. And that's something that I wasn't able to have with her. And it was just so hard not to ever be able to have that. But I know where she's at. I'll never forget what my uncle Dan said at the family service before the funeral. He said that he knows that of all the people who support me in my ministry, he said he knows that she's my number one supporter. And that means so much to me tonight. So I've been so blessed with a good family, a good heritage. I'm so thankful for that. And Mom, if you would stand. I don't know what to do without her. But, all of us have made mistakes in our lives. All of us. The Bible says, all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. But that doesn't mean that God can't use our mistakes, our hurt, our circumstances. God wants something. You come up here. I'd like to introduce my biological father to you tonight. He may have made a mistake, but that doesn't mean that God can't use his mistake, any of our mistakes for his glory. Thank you for your attention.